Welcome back to Top Shelf EDU. I'm Aaron Lee, your host, and today I'm really excited to be speaking with our guest, Dr. Yolana Wassersug from the University of King's College in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Yolana, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Aaron.
Yeah, just really excited to learn more about University of King's College. Can you just introduce the school, where it's at, and a little bit more?
I'd be happy to. King's is a little bit of a hidden gem. The University of King's College is one of the smaller institutions in Nova Scotia. We're right in the heart of Halifax. We have about 1,000 students total. So we are a tiny little campus. It's an everyone knows everyone kind of community. We're also one of Canada's oldest English language universities in the nation. We were founded in 1789. So there's a long history and heritage behind the University of King's College. Along with being really small, we have this very unique partnership with our friends and neighbors, Dalhousie University. So our campus, for anyone out there who's listening who's been to Halifax before, you've probably seen Dalhousie's campus. And King's is tucked into one corner of Dal's campus. It's sort of nested in there. It's almost like Dal wraps around us on three sides, like they're giving us a big hug. And the King's and Dal campuses are really integrated and intertwined. Students at King's can take classes and programs at Dal. Dal students can enjoy taking a really interesting elective or doing a minor at King's College. So we're really sharing a bunch of our resources, which is a nice environment. And we can talk about this more with the questions that you ask, but over at King's, we are really well known for arts and humanities programs, for our journalism school. I'm sure you're going to ask about those.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask, what are your most popular programs? We hear a lot about this foundation year program. Can you explain what it is and why it's so central to the student experience?
Absolutely. So foundation year is one of the biggest reasons that people choose to come to King's. It is a very unique program. There's really nothing else quite like it in the country. It is a different way of doing the first year of your degree. So overall, we have 4 types of degrees that undergraduate students are getting. A student can come to King's to do a Bachelor of Arts degree. They can do a Bachelor of Science. They can do journalism, the Bachelor of Journalism and Media honors, or they can do a music degree with us. So those are our 4 types of degrees. But at King's, no matter which kind of degree you're doing, you can start with the same exceptional first year. And that's quite special. It's a little bit different than a student who's doing, let's say, an arts degree because they love, history or political science, and a student who's doing a science degree because they love microbiology would be in the same first year classes. But at King's, that's possible. And so it helps to really create a strong cohesion in first year, really great social groups, and to make that experience of going from high school to university a little bit easier because all of our first year students are in this strong cohort together. The foundation year program is a more arts and humanities focused program. So it's basically a year of learning that's built around books and ideas. Students at King's read all sorts of different kinds of books, literature, philosophy, social sciences. They'll read a playwright like William Shakespeare. They'll read a scientist like Charles Darwin. They'll talk about art history. They'll talk about economic or political theories. They'll read someone like Karl Marx one day and Sigmund Freud the next. So they're really covering a huge range of ideas. The way we organize this year of reading so that it has some structure to it is that we're moving in chronological order. So we start way back in ancient civilizations. We start with this incredible book called The Epic of Gilgamesh, which is one of the earliest written stories that we have as humans.
Mhm.
And from anywhere in the world. It's like one of our earliest written texts, which is really cool. And then we're going to move our way through history. So we're going to travel through the ancient world, through the Middle Ages, through the Renaissance, all the way into the present day, really thinking about why is our culture the way it is now? How do we get to this moment? So we're not kind of dividing things up by discipline or type. Instead, we're traveling together through time. That's a pretty intensive experience. It is a lot of reading. I like to be really upfront about that with students. I don't want anyone to be blindsided like, oh, I didn't know there was going to be books. There's going to be books if you choose King's. And there's also quite a lot of writing in the program. You can really think of foundation year as an academic writing boot camp of sorts, like an opportunity for students to really delve into a depth of skills and knowledge when it comes to being able to write exceptional academic papers. So that's foundation year program in a nutshell.
Yeah. And that's really good. Like, it's really about building those skills, especially during that first year, where because it says foundation year, it's some students or parents may think that it's like a bridge, but it's not a bridge, is it? It actually counts towards the first year, which everybody does.
This is a really common misconception, and I love everything about foundation year program. I did the
Mhm.
program myself, and I loved it. If there's one thing I could change about foundation year, it would be the name, because I do think the word foundation can be a little bit misleading. Some people think that it might be like a transition year program, a bridging program, or a remedial program for students who aren't quite ready for university yet. I just really want to dispel that myth. Foundation year is a pretty rigorous start to university academically. So it's really well suited to students who are ready for a university level challenge. And it does count as your first year of study. Students who do the foundation year program when they're in first year, they get all of the prerequisites and requirements that they need in that first year program so that when they're done foundation year, they're moving straight into their second year of their chosen program. So straight into their second year in their Bachelor of Science, straight into the second year of the journalism program, second year of music, the second year of an arts degree. And most of our students declare their major in their second year. So it is a bit more general in terms of the type of content, but it is also quite rigorous academic.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I really liked how you said that most students will choose their major at the second year because, a lot of students, when you go to university, especially at the age of 17, 18, it's really young. And a lot of students don't know exactly what they want to do, or they may think they know what they want to do, but aren't actually sure. So this is a great opportunity to kind of build those skills, find out a little bit more about each of those subjects, and then actually decide which way you want to go. That's great.
Absolutely. And it's really common for me to meet students who kind of have a sense of what they might want to do once they're in high school while they're in high school. Usually students do have know basically what type of degree they want to get. Like they know if they want to do a science degree, they know if they want to do an arts degree, and maybe they have an idea in mind of what they might want to major in, something like psychology or environmental studies. Doing something like foundation year and first year can be great because you get exposed to a wide range of ideas. You meet professors from all sorts of different departments across King's and Dalhousie, because those are all like the people who are lecturing in the program. So for a lot of the King students, because we tend to get students on our campus who are like already pretty curious, interdisciplinary thinkers, and a lot of them discover maybe not that they have a totally different idea about what they were interested in, but maybe they discover a new interest along the way. So we end up with a lot of people who end up do like a major and a minor or a double major or a combined honors degree where they're mixing and matching between programs. They might have come out of high school thinking, okay, I'm going to do a degree in psychology, but by the time they're done foundation year program, they realize, yeah, I'm going to do psychology and I'm also going to do a minor in gender and women's studies or contemporary studies because they discovered that they loved that.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing. Like, I was gonna ask in terms of if somebody starts in a certain stream and then they wanna switch, that's pretty easy to do, it seems from what you just said in terms of just having that flexibility.
Yeah, it's generally speaking pretty flexible. There can be some variations here depending on program. Some programs have more rigorous requirements. If someone's starting in science, for example, they've probably gotten some pre-calculus math, and then if they want to
Mhm.
switch to arts, that's a bit of an easier transition. If they're in something like arts first and they don't have appropriate math requirements, then making the switch to science might take an extra step. But rest assured, you're allowed to change your mind anytime. Of course you are. People's interests change, they grow and develop, that's normal. And academic advisors on our campus are,
Mm.
very well versed in how to help make sure that a student is doing what they want to do, figuring out the requirements they need to take so that they aren't, stuck or disappointed or discover really late in the game, oh, I'm going to have to take a fifth year of university that I wasn't planning on. Or, yeah. So we can help guide a student through that.
That's great. Now in terms of the classes, is you mentioned lectures, is how big is the class, and do they like are they just lectures? Do you have tutorials? Do you have smaller classes? How does that kind of look? And does it change throughout their time?
Right. Well, in the foundation year program, the day to day of foundation year is pretty structured. So students who are in foundation year program will, if they're doing arts or journalism or music, foundation year is going to fill up kind of basically 4 days of their week, and it's going to be the equivalent of taking 4 full-time classes in terms of the number of credit hours. For those arts, journalism, music students, they also have room in their schedule for an extra class each semester that they can take. So typically for a music student, for example, they would do foundation year and they would also take a class in the music department alongside it. If you were a journalism student, you'd do foundation year and you'd also take the introductory journalism course alongside it, for example. If you are a science student, you're doing foundation year program 3 days a week, and that leaves room in your schedule for an introductory level science class and an introductory level math class so that I get all the prerequisites you need in first year. That's a really important kind of way the program's structured. So basically, either 4 days a week or 3 days a week, you're doing foundation year program, and your day to day is going to look the same. You're going to have a lecture in the morning where a professor who is an expert on that book that you were just reading is going to come in and talk about it and give you their point of view. And everyone is in the lecture hall together, about 200 students in the
Okay.
foundation year program. And then in the afternoon, you're really doing the heart of the program, which is very discussion oriented. So you'll be in a much, much smaller class, which we call a tutorial. Those are capped at 15 students. And the tutorial is your space to really like discuss, debate, hone your opinions. I always describe it as a great opportunity to practice respectfully disagreeing with others, which is a really critical skill in a democracy. You should know how to respectfully disagree with others.
Yes.
So that's the structure of the program. You're doing lecture in the morning, tutorial in the afternoon, and you're also reading these books. And so in a way, there's kind of three approaches to learning that happen in the year. Reading is usually a pretty solitary activity, like just you and the text, and you're kind of
Hmm.
in your dorm room, cozied up on your blankets, and you're experiencing these books, and maybe you're taking some notes, or maybe you're listening to an audiobook while you do it. Maybe it's a play you're reading that week and you and a couple of your friends are reading it out loud together. But generally speaking, the reading is just sort of about you and the text. Lecture is a bit different because you're with everybody and you're hearing the opinion of an expert and thinking that through as you're listening. And then tutorial is really active and it's a really group based, community based kind of learning where you're listening to others, you're finding your own voice, you're expressing your opinion, you're doing that on the spot critical thinking work. So those three modes of learning together, the reading, the lecture, and the tutorial, helps you synthesize complicated ideas and like work through things that you might have thought are going to be hard. So if you're going
Yeah.
in with this attitude of like, I don't know if I can read philosophy, like that might be tricky. We're really designing it in a way that is going to help students get through the parts that might seem like a hurdle.
Yeah. And those tutorials are so important because they actually allow you to discuss your ideas, which reinforces, your learning, but also hear different ideas and maybe challenge you in terms of, okay, maybe I was off a little bit here, or this is a different way of thinking about it. And I find those smaller discussions really help with the deeper learning that you're doing.
They do. And all of that builds really important skills. So after foundation year program, you still have more university to go. And maybe after
Mm.
your undergraduate degree, even more after that. Most of our students will go to graduate programs, master's degrees, law school. So we really want to set you up with skills that are going to be helpful. And the foundation year program builds a lot of those key skills. I already mentioned writing, but also critical thinking and analysis, both written and oral communications, being able to like deal with complex ideas without getting overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Also seeing the connections between things. That's part of doing an interdisciplinary program. Those are really valuable skills no matter what you end up majoring in. So we that's kind of why it's called foundation year, right? Like we're trying to build some core skills and lay down a solid foundation for you to build the rest of your education on top.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, you mentioned preparing students to apply for their masters or work. What other opportunities are there, like co-ops or internships or research opportunities available for students? And are there any specialized programs that this foundation year kind of help you get into later on, whether it's at your school or partnered with another?
Sure. Yeah. Those are great questions. Well, we have an office on campus and our small campus. There's a lot of like, one incredibly helpful person that's in charge of a lot of things. We have
Yeah.
a manager of experiential learning who is an incredible person. And we call our programs related to experiential learning KELP, the King's Experiential Learning Program.
Okay.
That's kind of an umbrella term that we use for all of our like internship opportunities and other forms of experiential learning. And there's quite a lot of them on our small campus. So for example, students who have done the foundation year program have access to specialized summer internship programs. There's a really cool initiative on our campus called the Liberal Arts Passport to Innovation, which is part of the KELP. And that's a really neat program because it's basically a free non-credit class that's open to any student. So you don't pay any tuition to take it, but all King students have access to it. And it's designed to teach students, especially liberal arts students, how to relate the things they're learning in their degree to their career preparedness. So
Very cool.
skills like, writing a great cover letter or resume, information about how to interview for a job or how to use LinkedIn effectively, like those types of skill sets that liberal arts students sometimes don't have a great grasp on. Like we really want to build those skills through that program that's available to all King students. And then you also mentioned, what our students do after and how they get prepared. So we have some resource in our country. We want students to consider, challenging themselves and applying for some of those big prestigious awards like the Rhodes Scholarship, the McBain Scholarship, the Cambridge Gates Award. Per capita, we're a nice little small university. Per capita, we have more Rhodes Scholars than any other school in Canada. So we do some info sessions during the year to help students, especially when they're getting close to graduation, figure out how to apply for those really critical awards that could help them have a stepping stone to places like Oxford or Cambridge. We also have a very unique partnership with our friends at the University of Calgary and their law school. So students who have done the foundation year program and complete their degree at King's have basically a little bit of an advantage when it comes to admissions to U Calgary Law. We definitely have a lot of students that go to law school. Not all of them choose U Calgary. Some of them go to law schools all around the world. But I think it really speaks to the foundation year that our friends in the law school at U Calgary reached out to us to say, oh, hey, we noticed that your students are really well prepared for the type of thing we want to see in a law school classroom. So, yeah, so that's how that partnership came about.
Yeah, that's great. I was just going to say for any for any future students who are interested in law, this is a great opportunity because it gives you the advantage. It's being a smaller school and having that foundation year where you can build those skills, have those opportunities are really important, especially for like the Rhodes Scholars.
Well, yeah, the Rhodes Scholarship is a quite prestigious award that is for study at Oxford University. So it is pretty competitive. It's definitely a big honor to be selected for a Rhodes Scholarship. So that is something that we're quite proud of at King's, that we've seen some Rhodes Scholars come through our doors and then send them off to Oxford to go on to awesome things.
No, absolutely. And that just goes to what's actually happening at your school and, what students are learning and able to do. So that's great. Let's move over to when students are applying, whether it's, from Canada or from internationally, can you walk us kind of through what that looks like for a student? And are there any scholarships available?
Sure. So I think our admissions process is pretty straightforward and transparent. We're not trying to make it a bit of like much of a secret about what
Mhm.
we're looking for. Our website lists exactly what kinds of grades we would expect to see on a student's transcript for admission. For students who are coming into grade 12, we encourage them to apply in the early admissions period if they'd like to, and early admissions opens in October. So basically from October through to the end of January, we are in what we call the early admissions period. And during that time, if a student applies, we're going to ask for their transcript from their high school. And we're going to be looking at any completed grade 12 classes that they've already done, academic grade 12 classes they've already done. We need to see at least 5. So if they don't have 5, they probably won't in the early admissions period. We'll look back at their final marks from grade 11 as well. And we're pretty straightforward about what we're looking for. So for programs like arts and journalism and music, we want to see a strong grade in English and then their next 4 strongest academic subjects, and we average those together. Typically, at least a 75 average is needed for admission. So English and then the 4 other academic courses that they're best at. For a Bachelor of Science student, we want to see English and pre-calculus level math or calculus, and then their next 3 strongest academic subjects. So basically English, math, and the 3 other things you're best at. And again, looking at a 75. That's it. There's no mystery to that. We definitely have scholarships, and we definitely encourage students to apply for those scholarships. So basically, at King's, there are 2 types of scholarships that we'll consider. The first is called a general entrance award. General entrance awards are really straightforward. Students basically have to do nothing to be considered. There's no extra step. There's no extra paperwork. They just need to apply to the university before March 1st. That's it. And then we'll just assess them automatically. So they could be admitted to the university with an average of at least a 75. Our scholarships start at 80. So an average of 80 or higher will guarantee some form of general entrance award. We might make adjustments to the scholarship policy, but as of time of this conversation,
Yeah.
it's been somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000
Oh,
on
wow.
basically what the student's average is. So those are general entrance awards. Like I said, very straightforward. The student just applies to the university and then they're automatically assessed. The other kind of scholarship that we have are what are called major awards. And with major awards, there is a separate supplemental application to be considered where we ask some more detailed questions. Again, the deadline's March 1st. And the major award is where students can really showcase and talk about their extracurriculars, their volunteering, all of that other stuff that makes them a really well-rounded student. For admissions, we're basically just looking at a transcript and we're basically just looking at grades. But on the scholarship application, that's where we often see students talking about debate club, athletics, theater, volunteering, community service, their part-time job. All of those things can come through and are part of the decisions that the scholarship committee makes when they assess those major awards.
Yeah. No, that's really good to point out because, I guess some students will think if they're applying, especially internationally, that those things are, going into the admissions, where in Canada, generally for most schools, it's just their grade 12 courses.
Yeah.
but the extracurriculars do play an important role if you're looking for scholarship or other things like that. So,
They absolutely do, and not only that, but extracurriculars are just good for
mhm,
making you a more well-rounded person who's more ready for university, who has more capable time management skills, a more, attuned work-life balance. There's lots of good reasons to do extracurriculars besides just, will it help me get into university? So that's an important thing for students to keep in mind. And I think you asked earlier too about, for both domestic and international students, what does admissions look like? And I should probably touch on that a little bit. One important piece for international students to know is that there are some earlier deadlines. So I already mentioned March 1st is our scholarship deadlines. We want everyone to apply by March 1st, whether they're international or domestic. But the truth is that the domestic students do have a little more time. And if they don't get in an application by March 1st, that's okay. For the international students, it's a little bit of a tighter timeline, and April 1st is their final deadline because we need
right.
to make sure that they would have time to apply for a study permit, for example. So that's one difference for the international students to keep in mind would be that earlier deadline. The other important piece for any international students to keep in mind is that, depending on their home country or if they've studied in Canada before and for how long, they may need to submit some proof of English proficiency, like TOEFL or IELTS test. So that's not always necessary. It kind of depends on the student's academic background and their home country, but it can sometimes be required for international students.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Now, for those that are studying in Canada who are international, are you looking for 3 or 4 years of studying?
Yeah, so if they've been in Canada for
Okay.
3 years, then we'll waive any English language
Mhm.
proficiency requirements.
Okay. No, that's great. Let's go to the student experience in the campus life. What kind of extracurriculars or clubs, whether it's unique or most popular, that you offer?
Okay, so there are quite a lot. We're a tiny little school, but we have a lot of clubs and societies, and we share basically every club and society and student group we have with our friends at Dalhousie. So that means there's even more options.
Okay.
I don't know if I've said enough about how cool Dalhousie is in this conversation yet today, but I'll just highlight briefly that, we're a small liberal arts school that's connected to a U15 school, one of the top 15 research driven universities in the country. So that creates a huge range of opportunities for students. It's a pretty incredible thing. And it means that there's a lot of different kinds of clubs, societies, student groups. So some examples, but this is not going to be like a complete list.
No, for sure.
You can expect to find a type of student group or society for basically any academic program. So let's say you are a biology major, there's going to be a biology society. If you are a journalism student on the King's campus, there is a journalism society, and they're going to do fun events that are maybe a little more academic or give you a chance to get to know your faculty and your professors a little bit better. For example, the journalism society does a
Mhm.
student faculty a dodgeball tournament every year, which
Oh,
is really
that's fun.
so, an academic society would be one type of society that you'd often see on campus. Another great example would be like intramural or club sports. So, loads and loads of options. Literally can't list them all, but anything you can imagine from like esports to ultimate frisbee, like just a
Oh,
ton of,
wow.
kind of clubs and groups. A really popular one on the King's campus is our theater society, the King's Theatrical Society. They put on fantastic plays every year. We have a beautiful little black box theater on our campus. It's called the Pit. We call it that
Okay.
with love. It's a loving nickname for our theater. And then another really popular club or society on our campus that has a lot of active involvement and participation is the King's Pride Society. And they plan really fun events. Queerioke, the like Pride Society's karaoke night, is always a
Yeah.
huge hit. It's really fun.
Okay.
So lots of different kind of clubs and groups for students to get involved in. And, this is almost a cliche because any university will tell you this, but anyone can start a
Mm.
club or a group. Like if you want something and you don't see it, or, no one else has thought of it yet, you can just make it happen. The rule on our campus is it has to be inclusive. So one thing we do not have at King's is fraternities or sororities. So that's an important piece because they all have to be inclusive clubs. But other than that, it's pretty easy to get something started. And because of being able to share clubs and groups with Dal, there's just this massive range. And then the other piece that is a little different from clubs, society student groups would be varsity athletics. We're a smaller school, but we definitely have some very active varsity teams in rugby, volleyball, basketball, soccer, badminton. And that can be a great experience for students. There can be some separate athletic scholarships available to students. And I always encourage this as part of the admissions process. But if there's a student who's thinking they might want to get involved in varsity athletics and they're applying, it's never too early to reach out to the coach. Our admissions team would be happy to direct you to the coach for the team and start asking some questions and learn a little bit about team culture what practice schedules are typically like, what's the tryout process like. It's not too early to ask those questions at any time.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the things, especially because there's so many people who are playing certain sports and the coaches just cannot see everybody's reaching out, trying to get on their radar is really important. So that's a great point. Thank you for that as well. There, it's just so interesting to hear all the different types of clubs. And I really like that. There were two things that really stood out was one, it has to be inclusive, which is really important. And then the second one was if there isn't a club that is already there, then there's the opportunity for you to create one. So I think that, for students that are considering this, just know if there is something for you. And if there isn't, then you have the opportunity to make it. You just have to, go ahead and do it. So that's great.
And I will say, like, not every student is a join clubs kind of person. Some
Yeah.
people are not, that's not their vibe. Some people are maybe a little bit more of a wallflower, or that's just not the way that they want to engage with campus life. And that's totally fair. I encourage students, give it a try if you can, but if that's not for them, that's not for them. The one thing that I think I would think of as basically mandatory at King's, I hope students feel that way, is on our campus, because we are such an old university and we have this long history. We also have a couple unique campus traditions. And I would definitely encourage students to get involved in those or just come out and try it. There's lots that I can think of, and I probably can't name all of them, but one that I think is really special and I think gives people a sense of our community would be our formal meal, for example. So once a semester, our campus dining hall, which is usually like a cafeteria style dining hall like you would normally see at a university. Once a semester, they'll do this really special dinner. They'll lay out the white tablecloths and the flowers and candles on the table, and everyone will come to dinner wearing their black academic gowns, like the same types of gowns you would wear at a graduation ceremony. And everyone eats together and has a meal that's like a plated served meal. And the faculty will come and sit at head table, and usually we invite in like an interesting or inspirational person to be a guest speaker for the evening. It's such a nice tradition. It really makes you feel connected. There's lots of other traditions like that at King's. So, it's not mandatory to join a club or a student group, but coming out once a semester to have like a really special, unique experience is, I think, an important part of the King's experience.
Yeah, for sure. And to put yourself out there because that's how you're going to meet your people too. So having those experiences and it's interesting because that was my next question is are there any special traditions at Kings? But you just answered it. So
No,
that's
there
that's
definitely are. Yeah, there's definitely are. The formal meal is one of them. We have a really unique graduation ceremony, which we call
mm,
insignia. We have this cool tradition called matriculation, which happens at the beginning of every year, where students will basically take an oath in Latin, where they commit themselves to the values of communal living and learning, which is pretty nerdy, but very special and very memorable.
yeah.
And then, a bunch of other ones like our annual hike, the annual skating party, lots of traditions around the holidays, like some really fun ones that are very nice.
Yeah, and those are great opportunities to meet more people, to find your people, find your group. So that's great. Let's talk about residence for a quick second. How many students would live on residence, and is it guaranteed first year? How does your residence kind of look, and what are the options for staying there?
Yeah, great question. So we have guaranteed residence for every first year student who applies by April 1st. So we want to have a space in residence for basically any first year student who wants to live in residence. At King's, almost every first year student will live in residence. There's going to be a few that don't, especially the kids who are like local to Halifax. That was my situation. I'm from Halifax originally, and I went to King's, and it was a 20-minute walk from my house. So I did not live in residence in first year. I spent a lot of time on campus, but I didn't sleep there at night. So there's definitely options for day students as well. But, a lot of first year students will live on campus. And then moving into the upper years, we definitely have some spaces reserved for upper year students. It tends to be the case that more of our students prefer to live off campus in upper years. It's just, where we're located in the city of Halifax, there are options for off campus housing that are really close to campus, that are friendly and convenient and safe. And, it's not like we're kind of in a suburban area or a place that's hard to get to or is a little bit separated from, the main residential or downtown part of the city. So living off campus is a little bit more feasible for King students. In first year, when students are living in residence, they have a couple options for different types of room styles. And their best way to get exactly the room they want is to apply as early as they can for residence. A couple of different options, but we don't guarantee that you're going to get your very first choice. We have a few single rooms on our small campus. but more of our rooms are doubles. So it's very, very common for a King student to have a roommate. That's a really typical experience on our campus, and we think it's a really good experience. It can be great to have a roommate. It can be a great way to learn about living an adult life.
Yeah.
And, having a positive roommate relationship that is respectful, that has healthy boundaries, like those are all really helpful, useful life skills. So we like to encourage students to have a roommate. The single rooms on our campus we prioritize students with a documented medical need for those rooms. And then when we're doing roommate matching, we are thorough. So we ask a lot of questions about lifestyle. Are you an early bird? Are you a night owl? Do you listen to music loud? Do you you know, every everything. We ask a lot of questions and we match people up on very human characteristics. So there's no software involved in this. There's no algorithm. There's no AI use in matching roommates. There are real human beings that read over every application and connect people. The two main styles of double rooms on our campus are what I often call a traditional double. So when I say traditional double, I usually tell students just like picture a rectangle in your head and then put two beds, two desks, two dressers, two little mini fridges in that rectangle. That's a double room. The simplest definition of double room I can describe. So that's the traditional double. And then we also have what we call the bay residences. And those are more like a semi-private double. So there's still two rooms and roommates, but there's a door between them. And so that can be a pretty popular residence style on our campus as well.
That's great. What advice would you give a grade 11 student who's considering like the liberal arts education at King's?
Okay, what advice would I
Mm,
give? So I would say really think about who you are. Are you someone who genuinely gets pleasure from reading? You don't have to be the world's fastest reader. You don't have to think of yourself as a reader that like always loves everything you read. Nobody is a reader who always loves everything they read. But
mhm.
do you genuinely enjoy it and find that to be like a way that you can learn? Like that's a really important question you should ask yourself before considering applying to the King's Foundation Year program. I'd also say, if you're a grade 11 student, like push yourself a little bit, take some academic classes, explore some extracurriculars, practice those time management skills. That will all help you be ready for university. So those are a couple pieces of advice. But generally speaking, I find that because the foundation program is a little bit special and a little bit different, our students tend to just know, like in their gut, if that's the right thing for them. And I can't believe I didn't say this, but one other thing I would say as a piece of advice to any grade 11 student anywhere, whether they're considering liberal arts or something completely different, is just take some campus tours. Like, please go see some universities in person. Go see universities that are close to you, even ones that you are not considering applying to. Because when you're on university campuses and you start, asking yourself the question, could I picture this? Could I imagine myself living here? It will help you kind of crystallize in your mind, like, well, what is it that I really want? And like place and location and setting makes a big difference. Vibes, for lack of a better word, vibes makes a big difference. How you feel when you're someplace, does it feel like home to you? You're going to know that in your gut. And the best way to suss that out is to just start going to some university campuses and take some tours. They're free,
Mm,
they're fun. They might give you lunch. They'll probably give you a little piece of
mm.
swag or something to take home. There's no downside. Just do it on the weekend. It's fun. It's a nice thing to do with your time.
That is so true. Like through my years, we've often taken students to different universities on different tours and stuff. And every year there's so many that will go who had this on their list and they're like, okay, I don't want to apply to this school anymore. Or we've been on another school and they're, oh, I'm definitely applying this because they've never like know anything about it, but just being on the campus. So that's really good advice. If you have the opportunity, go and visit some campuses to make sure that it's a good fit for you. You can see how the vibe is. You can even talk to students there on campus to, kind of find out what their experiences are like, but that's going to be really important for sure. Yeah. What's one of the things that students or parents often have like a misunderstanding about Kings, would you say?
Yeah. Okay. So I think we dispelled one of the myths earlier, which is people can be a little confused about
Mhm.
foundation year program, or think that it's going to add an extra year to their degree, or that it's a transition year program. So we've already touched on that a little bit. Another kind of misconception about our campus is I know I've talked a lot about foundation year program in this conversation, but it's actually not all we do.
Mhm.
So not everyone at King's does foundation year. It is the most popular way for students to start their first year on our campus, but we also get students who are not doing foundation year and they're taking a lot of their classes at Dalhousie, but they're living on our campus and really enjoying the small, welcoming environment in our community. We also have this incredible journalism school. I barely even talked about how great our journalism program is, but a lot of students come to us for journalism. So one kind of myth about King's is we're just foundation year and that's it. And I don't think that's really fair to what we're about. The most common misconception, I think, or the most troubling misconception, I might say, especially among parents, students usually don't have this issue, but parents do, is this worry that parents have that a liberal arts degree is not practical or not going to get them to where they need to go. I'm pretty concerned about that myth. As a person who genuinely loved the liberal arts experience, I loved the freedom and flexibility that it gave me. I loved the way it challenged me to be the best thinker I can be, the best communicator I can be. I like the way that a liberal arts degree doesn't just prepare you for one skill, it prepares you for a universe of skills. And I think that that's really helpful. We're living in an extremely turbulent job market. The nature of work, what kinds of jobs are going to be valued, important, meaningful, are going to be different in 5 years from now than they are right at this moment as you and I are having this conversation. So when I think about how will I prepare for a job market that doesn't exist yet? How will I prepare for a career that hasn't been invented yet? To me, the answer is go broad, be flexible, learn core skills, train your mind to think good thoughts and ask interesting questions. Train your mind to be curious so that you can learn new stuff all through your life. That's the type of skills that a liberal arts degree is really focused on. And I think that that's critical right now. We do not know what's going to happen next in this job market. So I would caution students against pigeonholing themselves too much in one particular skill set, because if that particular career kind of falls through or stops being relevant, then you're in a tricky situation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like such great advice. And often when we talk to, we'll have career days and bring people in and just kind of find out their pathway to where they end up. Very few actually go a direct pathway. Many of them are coming in from either other, undergraduate degrees where they've taken like a psychology and they're now doing this, or they've taken a business, but they're actually doing this now. So it's very rarely is it a direct line. So having those skills are going to be more and more important. And especially as you said, when we don't really know what the future of work is going to be in the next few years.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're in high school to imagine what your career might be. I mean,
Mhm.
I know there's high school students listening to this podcast right now, and I hope this doesn't come across sounding like condescending or rude, because high school students know a lot and are very, very smart. I meet a lot of incredible high school students. But I also find that I often talk to high school students that, if you ask them what jobs are out there, the list of jobs they have is pretty short. They're like, yeah, there's doctors, there's lawyers, there's teachers, there's engineers, there's podcasters, there's whereas they kind of run out of things to say.
Mm.
There's lots of careers out there, and it's not always something that you're going to be able to draw a direct line to. And
Yeah.
obviously, sometimes there is. If you want to be an electrician, there's a direct pathway to that. There's a trade you can learn. You can do an electrical program at a community college, and it's going to give you the credential you need to become an electrician. And that's a pretty straight path. But a lot of the careers that, you know, high school students might really be hungering for, careers that have complexity, that are going to give them a sense of purpose, that are really, they're driven by curiosity and a desire to make the world a better place, that give them the opportunity to have an income that they feel comfortable with, and that also give them the opportunity to help others. Those types of careers, there's not always a direct pathway to how you prepare for that type of career. So starting with a liberal arts degree can be, a very safe bet, not a risky bet, in a very safe and reasonable way to begin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've went over so much in this episode and thank you so much great advice. Is there anything that I didn't ask or something that you may want to touch on?
Oh gosh. Well, you asked a lot of great
I
questions.
know.
So thank you for that. I hope that people who are listening to this and have questions know that they can reach out. One of the best things about working at a small university is we are very easy to reach. If you email something like admissions@ukings.ca, you're going to get an answer from someone like me or my colleague Tara or my colleague Miranda, and we're going to get back to you right away because it's a small school, and that's one of the benefits of a small school. We can help. So, reach out if you're curious and keep asking good questions, visit some university campuses. I think that's all. That's all I can say at this stage. We're
Okay.
excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much. This has been so helpful. And for all those listeners, This is an excellent opportunity. If you have any questions, again, please reach out. But thank you so much for speaking with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to Top Shelf EDU, your inside look at the university experience. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone exploring their path to higher education. We'll be back with more insights, stories, and advice to help you navigate your journey. See you next time.